All right, let's keep looking at the evidence for evolution. We've already gone through biogeography evidence, fossil evidence, anatomical evidence, and now we're going to look at embryological evidence. So how are we similar in our embryological development? First of all vertebrate embryos have a post-anal tail and paired pharyngeal or throat pouches, which is crazy. If you look at the embryos here, in a fish, salamander, tortoise, chick, human, all of us have this post-anal tail right here. So in humans, the post-anal tail becomes your tailbone. In fish, they're going to have right here, the tail fin. You have salamanders with a tail. They all start out the same way. And then we all have these pharyngeal pouches. So in a fish, it's going to become the gills, where in a human, it's going to become our lungs, the air sacs. But the fact that we all start out with a similar makeup is great evidence for evolution as well, showing that we all started from the same type of organism. And these are actual pictures here. I like these. There's a fish, a bird, reptile, mammal, mouse, human. Okay, and then there's biochemical evidence. So all living organisms use the same basic biochemical molecules. We all utilize the same DNA triplet code, meaning the three bases that equal an amino acid. They utilize the same 20 amino acids as well. The fact that we all use very, 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 very similar biochemistry is also evidence for evolution. We can look down here and we can see this is cytochrome C. It's a small protein, but it plays a really big role in the electron transport chain within mitochondria of all cells. And we know the electron transport chain is very important to produce ATP. So the more closely related the organisms are, the more similar their cytochrome C protein is, because any tiny change in these proteins makes a big difference. So humans and monkeys have almost no differences at all between their cytochrome Cs, these big molecules. But if you look at a human versus a yeast, there's a huge difference in the cytochrome C molecule, the protein. So we can use these proteins and the DNA and the different types of proteins that are made to see how different or how similar they are, so we can tell how closely related evolutionarily two organisms are. So when the DNA base sequence is very similar, it means they were recent common descent. Where when it's very different, then it suggests more ancient common descent. How closely related are two organisms? All right, let's go over the different evidence we've looked at. You do need to know this list. There's biogeographic evidence. There's fossil evidence. Comparative anatomy, those different, the slide on the anatomy. Homologous, analogous, and vestigial structures. There's embryology and biochemical similarities. These are all evidence for evolution. Even though we call it the theory of evolution, remember what we talked about way back, I think it was chapter 1 when we first started class? A theory in science is not the same as when you use the word theory in a conversation. A theory is not just some guess that somebody made up. A theory in science has been proven many, many, many times and has not been shown to be false yet. So evolution is not considered a hypothesis. It's not just a guess. It is the great unifying theory of biology. It's been proven true many, many times and has so much evidence for it. Now, here's some misconceptions about evolution that some people have been confused about. Evolution is not a theory about how life originated. It's not saying where life came from. Evolution only explains how the diversity of life emerged following its origins. So we're not asking where life came from, we're asking how all of these different species came from one life, the first life. Another thing, there are no transitional fossils for some lineages. And because there are no transitional fossils, some people think that then that didn't happen. That organism must not have come from whatever we're talking about. But the thing is, biologists don't expect all transitional fossils to have been preserved. But they have unearthed many transitional fossils. So we haven't found fossils for every organism that's ever lived. There's so many organisms that we don't even know about that are still alive now we haven't even discovered. So there's no way that we could possibly discover all of the or trace evidence or any kind of evidence of all organisms that have ever lived. So we don't have the whole story, but we have a lot of pieces of it. Also, evolution is not just caused by random events. Chance is only part of the story. There's also mutations that occur randomly, but natural selection is not random. We're going to talk about this a lot more in the next chapter that we're going to go through on Wednesday. Also, evolution is both observable and testable. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about Darwin next week. I want to make sure that you watch the Darwin Origin of the Species video link. Make sure you watch that. Some of the points that Darwin focused on, he emphasized that individuals from a population vary in their functional characteristics, their physical characteristics, and their behavioral characteristics. So everyone, even within the same species, even within the same family, there's always variation between any sexually fertilized individuals. So you don't look exactly like your parents. Your parents don't look exactly like their neighbors. Even though we're all the same species, there is variation. And there's different types of variation. There's variation in actual characteristics of what they look like. That's physical characteristics. There's variation in how their bodies perform. That would be a functional characteristic. So some people can handle sugar better than others, for example. And there's behavioral characteristics. Some people like to be more by themselves where others don't. These are all things that vary between individuals in a population. And he proposed that these variations, they do occur randomly sometimes, and they can be, well, they do occur randomly. They can be harmful, they can be helpful, or they can be neutral. They are essential to the natural selection process that we are going to discuss next week, and they are what allow adaptations to the environment over time. All right, and we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to look at the blue-footed, or not next week, on Wednesday, at the blue-footed booby. We're going to talk about polar bears, and we're going to talk about different crops. All right, so make sure you watch the video links that I have posted. You will have a lab. I'm probably going to post it on Wednesday. And we have 2 Connect assignments due this week by Sunday. Your test will be next week. And I'll make sure and get some study guides out there next week for you guys. All right, have a great week, and I miss you all.